this week, two well-known Israeli human rights groups finally declared that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights. And in a new report published earlier this week, B'Tselem says, quote, for nearly 2 years, Israel has been committing genocide in Gaza, acting in a systematic, deliberate way to destroy the Palestinian society there through mass killing, causing serious bodily and mental harm, and creating catastrophic conditions that prevent its continued existence in Gaza. And then they say this genocide must be stopped. And Physicians for Human Rights says, and it issued its own position paper, quote, today, Physicians for Human Rights Israel is releasing a position paper that documents this assault for what it is, a deliberate cumulative dismantling of Gaza's health system, and with it, its people's ability to survive. This amounts to genocide. So, I mean, I had a number of reactions to this. The first, I think, shared by many is better late than never. I haven't had a chance yet to read these reports in detail. I like to read things really cover to cover, but there's only so many hours in the day. Um, and I'm sure that based on the record of these organizations, these reports will contain useful information and analysis, which we should definitely draw on. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but really, what took them so long? I mean,
Yeah.
UN experts and countless others, most importantly Palestinians and Palestinian human rights groups, had warned of genocide since right after October 7th. You'll recall that that first statement from a number of UN independent experts and hundreds of Holocaust scholars, international law experts, they were issuing statements around October 15th and 16th of 2023 warning about genocide. And then, of course, we know that the ICJ case put forward by South Africa came shortly after that, and the preliminary ruling was in January of 2024. So it's not as if this was a hard call to make. It's the easiest and most documented genocide in history, the easiest to recognize, I mean. So why didn't they speak out? I think they have to account for that, and I haven't seen that. And particularly, Physicians for Human Rights Israel, I think, has even more accounting to do because this group, which I had a lot of respect for previously, contributed to the genocide by using its credibility to spread atrocity propaganda about the non-existent, no evidence for them, October 7th mass rapes. And as I reported in May of 2024, uh, what Physicians for Human Rights did is that they published a report soon after October 7th that is still being cited by proponents of the rape hoax, purporting to gather together information about it. But uh, in spring of 2024, they walked that back, and they said it is becoming more apparent that the violence perpetrated against women, men, I'm sorry, they recognized that they had actually uh, shared information that was disputed or unverifiable, and that much of the information they had shared about the rapes was fake.
Yeah.
But they said we regret their inclusion in their position paper, the one that claimed there were all these rapes. And they also claimed that a substantial portion of the information that is now available was not accessible when the document was originally drafted, the document alleging mass rapes. That is not true. We were able to debunk those stories very early on. And I don't think that Physicians for Human Rights ever really properly accounted for its role or repaired the damage. Uh, and they said back when they retracted much of their claims about mass rapes, quote, sexual violence and allegations of sexual violence must never be weaponized as tools of warfare or propaganda. That was too little, too late then. And again, it's too little, too late for them to be declaring genocide now. But that said, better late than never. For for what these reports are worth, for the good information they include, use them. but I I do quite resent that it often takes Israeli organizations to come out before people will start to believe what Palestinians have been telling them and documenting for years.
Yeah, and then just pretending the Palestinians weren't saying it all along. It's
Yeah.
incredibly
Why wasn't
frustrating.
it big international headlines when Al-Haq or Al-Mizan or other Palestinian organizations came out and declared this to be a genocide right at the beginning? Why wasn't that in The Guardian and the New York Times and the BBC and Deutsche Welle and so on? Just
Yeah,
totally absent.
these positions of these Israeli NGOs is very. I don't know if like a memo went out among Western media over the last week or something, but all of the front pages of the British newspapers, or most of them anyway, have all suddenly noticed that there's an engineered, or certainly that there's a mass starvation in Gaza. And it's
It's damage control at this point. They
yeah,
want to,
It's
salvage.
reputation saving
Yeah,
because
that's it.
nobody, as we said, as I think I said before, nobody wants to be the last one to
Right.
declare it's a genocide. But there's a problem with admitting that it's genocide too, especially for the Western governments or Western leaders, is you have to admit your complicity. You may
yeah.
actually be making a confession that opens you to criminal liability because genocide is an internationally uh, prosecutable crime. Any country can prosecute it. So if you're a government official who aided and abetted Israel, and now you admit that what you're aiding and abetting is a genocide, you could face prison for that in a world that worked according to how it's supposed to. But you never know. These people don't want to, looking 5, 10 years down the road, things might change and they may start getting arrested.
Yeah, and that's why Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, and David Lammy, his Foreign Minister, or certainly a large part of the reason, that's why they have not said that it's a genocide. There's certainly a large part of the reason because they would be directly liable for their
That's right.
active and enthusiastic involvement in the
And didn't
genocide.
Starmer actually say there's that video of him speaking on LBC radio before he became prime minister, but after October 7th, when he was asked directly, does Israel have the right to cut off food, electricity, water to people in Gaza? And he said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said yes.
Yeah. He tried to kind of say that he was only talking about Israel's quote unquote right to self-defense, but it's very clear on the video. He's asked in black and white terms, Israel is cutting off water, electricity, food, fuel. Does Israel have a right to do that? And he said, I think I think it's very difficult, but I think that Israel does have that right. So, it's very, very clear. It's very, very clear. They were actively involved. They have been actively involved, and they're still actively involved. The spy flights have been going over the British, the Royal Air Force spy flights have been going over Gaza continuously for the better part of 2 years. Although Matt Kennard, the journalist Matt Kennard, who's done so much to expose the role of the British Air Force, did say this week that it looks like they may be coming to an end. Again, you have to wonder if there's some kind of reputation management there, but of course we do want those fights to end.
And
Should we actually watch that Starmer video? I just want
God.
people to remember
Do we have
it.
to?
Yeah, no, it's short. Let's watch it. It's a Tamara, I dropped it in the chat. And because remember when he talked about in the clip I showed, he talked about the Gaza humanitarian, a failure of humanitarian aid.
That's
A
so
failure of
disgusting.
humanitarian aid is disgusting. So I don't know. Maybe I'm throwing it Tamara too fast. She usually can. If we're unable to do it, it's okay. But I threw it at you. I put you on the spot there.
Very clear. Israel does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation. Obviously, everything should be done within international law, but I don't want to step away from the sort of core principles that Israel has a right to defend herself and Hamas bears responsibility for these terrorist acts. And I would call on all responsible states, particularly Middle East responsible states, to call this out for what it is, and to stand with the world in utterly condemning these actions by Hamas.
I mean, first of all, just how ridiculous that is, 100% of it. But like, gendering Israel,
It's so bizarre. So bizarre.
so
It comes directly
disgusting.
out of the Israeli embassy. Like he's literally reading his memos, his scripts from
Yeah,
the
she's
Israeli
a
embassy.
she's a victim.
It's bizarre.
Yeah,
But
it's
there's something in it, Nora, because it is this kind of gendered language. Like
yeah,
Israel is a country being raped by these evil,
yes,
sex maniac Palestinian rapists. You know,
yeah.
there's
I mean,
definitely
that was
something in that.
yeah. Of course. And there he is saying it in plain language. Yes, Israel. I think he does. You know, she does have that right or whatever.
Bizarre.
And that is prosecutable in a world court. So yeah, I mean, these scurrilous politicians are now they're doing reputation control. They're trying to save their own face, and meanwhile, they're seeing all, if not more, images, all the images and videos that we're all seeing. They get situation
Yeah,
reports.
that was
They
what
get
Matt Miller admitted. Remember, a
That's
few
right.
weeks ago we talked to former
Yeah,
State Department spokesperson Matt Miller,
yeah,
who now has a lucrative job doing damage control for the world's worst companies and regimes
yeah,
at Washington Lobby Group. And he said in that podcast interview with I can't remember, I think it was a British publication, his name escapes me now, but anyway, we talked about it. And he was asked, he said, were you seeing what everyone was seeing? He said,
yeah,
yes, we saw those
yeah.
images, and we may have seen things that were worse that the public didn't see.
Right.
So an admission that they knowingly aided and abetted these crimes. They knew what Israel was doing and what the result was. And the same is undoubtedly true for Keir Starmer, for Emmanuel Macron, who continues to aid and abet Israel. Remember, this guy who's promoting himself as a champion of a Palestinian state. Every time Benjamin Netanyahu flies to Washington to collect more rewards from the United States, he's granted safe passage through French airspace, when what France is obligated to do is force his plane down and arrest him, hand him over to the International Criminal Court, not provide him with safe passage.
Yeah.
And I just read today that Netanyahu is scheduled to visit Argentina, where President Milei is a fanatical Zionist. So Argentina will be the second country after Hungary to receive Netanyahu and presumably not arrest him as required by the International Criminal Court warrant. But let's watch and see between Israel and Argentina, which countries aid and abet this genocide by providing its chief architect with safe passage through their airspace.
Yeah. Well, finally, meanwhile, there are these new polls that are coming out, and over again, the global revulsion within international civil society is growing against this genocide, this Holocaust, and against the perpetuation of these crimes, with the encouragement of these leaders like Starmer and Trump and the Biden administration before him.
Yeah, I just thought we should end on a sort of a slightly uplifting note, which is that we have this new poll from Gallup that shows the headline is 32% in US back Israel's military action in Gaza, a new low. Americans' approval of Israel's military action in Gaza has fallen 10 percentage points since the prior measurement in September, and it is now at 32%, the lowest reading since Gallup first asked the question in November 2023. Disapproval of the military action has now reached 60%. You should say that, I mean, it should be 0% support for Israel, but for the US, this is incredibly low to see a clear majority, 60% opposing Israeli military action. And Gallup notes that Americans supported Israel's actions in Gaza in its initial poll in 2023, taken weeks after October 7th. But since then, disapproval has outpaced approval in each survey. So Israel's initial burst of support that it got faded very quickly and is now at this new low. They also point out that 52% of Americans, so a majority, now view Benjamin Netanyahu unfavorably, his highest unfavorable rating since 1997. Just 29% of American adults have a favorable rating of him. And that is really remarkable. And it's really a shift that is particularly visible among the youth, among 18 to 34-year-olds. Just 6% of Americans support Israel's military action, as Gallup calls it, in Gaza, and just 9% view Netanyahu positively. And also, one last point on this, that new Gallup survey also asked about Israel's military attack on Iran, and it found that currently 38% of Americans approve of it and 54% disapprove. So a majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's attack on Iran.
Well, we'll see if any of that makes it into the policy decisions of those in power. It's hard not to be cynical, because
Well, they're
see,
seeing it. They're
yeah, they're seeing it.
seeing
It's
this.
right.
And if this is public opinion in the United States, what is it in Europe? What is it in the rest of the world?